I studied visual art in school. I studied marble carving, and then clays and head busts. And I was absolutely captivated with how much philosophy you can pack into visual art. And then my music career took off, and I was so lucky for that. And I continued to practice my visual art, and then I also then got into behavioral health. And so these three areas of my life have had my heart, visual art, music, and behavioral health. And I wanted to try to create an experience that brought all of those things together in one moment. And so for me, that's what this experience is. The exhibit is called The Portal, The Three Spheres. It's this idea that we each travel through three realms of existence every single day, often without realizing it. There's our inner realm, which is our thoughts and our feelings. There's the seen realm, which is all the physical world. It's our families and jobs and finances and nature, things we build. And then there's the unseen, the mysterious peeking behind the veil that we've been trying to define since the beginning of time. I think that mental health is a side effect of these three spheres working well together. If I'm able to articulate my heart's desire, if I'm able to articulate the real me and my feelings and have people in my environment listen to that and take that seriously, it makes me feel really good. If I feel passionate about my job, if I act on my spiritual values, then the adverse is true. We have conflict when our three spheres are in conflict. And so if nobody knows the real me, if I don't like my job, if I have no sense of awe or inspiration about what's in the unseen realm. And so this whole experience is designed using art to help you get to know what your three spheres are. And then also to know what they mean to me. I have some of my own artwork in here. I have an oil painting that represents the seen realm. It's a painting of my son. Then there's a sculpture of a person meditating filled with medication, and that represents my inner realm, my ideas of how do I relax, how do I stay healthy. And then speaking of technology, the hologram represents the unseen. And it's sort of a poem that I feel is what sums up the message that I like to get from the unseen realm. And I wanted to use traditional mediums, oil painting and sculpture, as well as these new technologies, because they are such blank canvases. It's new for people to experience, and so we don't come into them with the same prejudices that we might come into them with a more traditional art medium. I'm wanting them to be present with what they believe, whatever it means to them. It's so personal. We all have such a personal relationship with our own three spheres, but we're not often given very much time to consider what that is. What do I think about my inner life? Is it organized? Is it disorganized? Is it making me happy? Is it not making me happy? We don't have a lot of time and space to think about these things. And so to me, one of the great gifts that art gives us is space to ponder and consider. A lot of this philosophy around the three realms came for me just out of trying to learn how to heal. My mom left when I was 8. I was raised by an abusive single father. I moved out at 15, and I had so much trauma. I was so unhappy, but I wanted to learn how to be happy. And so for me, this is a real extension of what I have found works for me and what works for other people. I've had a youth foundation now for 22 years. We help kids with suicidal ideation, anxiety. When we start to learn that we can be present with uncomfortable things, when we start to learn we can even change our thoughts and feelings, that we can choose which ones we participate in, not every thought and feeling is a fact, that some of our physical interactions may not be good for us, and can we stop doing it? Can we change our behaviors? For me, this whole exhibit is about helping people realize that when we change, new things can grow in our life, and that's a positive thing. I wanted this to feel like a very immersive experience, and Crystal Bridges has one of the best art collections in the world. It was such a privilege to get to walk through this museum and choose paintings that I felt like really perfectly spoke to each realm. And then to be able to think of questions so that people can privately answer them in a journal that everybody will be given. So it's personal, it's just you and your journal. You don't have to tell anybody what you're writing down. But art is built to do this. I think every artist wants us to look at this and understand ourselves in relationship to this art. And so it feels like a really incredibly natural way to help people reflect. And it was a privilege to get to do this. I appreciate you thinking about that, because that was really something that I knew I would have to challenge myself to solve for 2 reasons. One is I'm a single mom. I would love to move somewhere for several months, but it's hard as a single mom. Going on tour is hard as a single mom. I had to start building things that allowed me to be home with my son and be present as a mother, but also allowed me to grow and develop and do inspiring things. And so this for me was an opportunity to do that. And so the challenge became, can I create an intense emotional connection without being here? I'm good at it on stage. I've spent decades learning how to sing for somebody and speak to somebody and elicit an emotional connection. And so it was very intriguing to see if I could do that without being here. Could I make my art that intense? Could I make the experience designed in a way that helps give people that emotional connection? And then ultimately creating that drone show that I hope gives people a really immersive, connected experience. But the proof will be in the pudding. Crafting this whole experience was sort of like creating a sculpture. I had to think about pace, timing, tension, creating different touch points, because the things that move you are going to be different than what move the person next to you. And so giving enough opportunities that everybody will have a touch point that will help them reflect. And then ultimately culminating in this experience outside over the lake with the drones. And so it kind of goes from a solitary individual experience to where you have these cards that people start talking to one another, to suddenly this very community experience outside, where the pacing really changes. And creating the music for it was some of the most fun I've ever had. Getting to visually storytell with drones and these massive sculptural shapes in the sky to the beginning, middle, and end of a story in an 8-minute, 10-minute arc was something I've never been able to craft before. So for me, it was absolutely new, which I love. I love learning and growing and being challenged. And then that challenge of like, how do I craft this in a way that hopefully gives you a really strong and positive emotional reaction. Experiencing watching the drone show with this whole community, all the staff that have worked for a year now to help me get this off the ground, to be able to invite everybody's family and everybody's children, it meant so much to me to be able to have this moment with the community. And it was also really vulnerable. Like, I've designed this in my own head. Nobody actually has even seen it, including me, until a couple of days ago. And so it was a really vulnerable moment of like, I hope what I designed did what I hope it will do. And it was sort of this moment of like, does it work? Do people like it? Do 8-year-olds like it? Do 60-year-olds like it? And it was, I think it worked. So that was very touching. Learning, I love learning. My meditation practice, my prayer practice is always very nourishing. There were times in my life where I was so brokenhearted that I didn't know if anything would ever give me a sense of inspiration or awe again. And this whole experience is the culmination of how I learned to heal. What do you do with a broken heart? All of us are going to have one. Why don't we talk about what to do with them? What does it look like on the other side? For me, it's, I don't know how to describe it. I think I said this the other night at the end of the drone show. It's a privilege to know that at 50, I can feel more inspired than I've ever felt in my life. I didn't think that was something I was entitled to. It certainly isn't something I'm entitled to. And the fact that I am is through my own hard work healing and the community deciding to help me have. This was the only museum I reached out to. It was the museum I knew in me and saying, we believe in you and we trust you to do this, and then wanting to reciprocate that trust and faith in return. That I wanted to be in if I was lucky enough to do that. The ethos of this museum is accessibility. It's democratizing access. It's elevated, but it's not elitist. It has heart. It's committed to community and innovation. That just sounds like if I couldn't have thought of a better alignment for me personally, and I'm really honored that they felt the same way. It's been so satisfying to bring all of my different aspects into one experience. It's been really healing for me to be able to have my visual art be seen. And so I imagine I'm getting to do this more if I'm lucky enough. I'd like to do more paintings, more visual art, creating more experiences, more opportunities where I can bring all of these aspects of myself together.